Hello, my name is Rose Potter, and I am so very pleased that you have taken time out of your busy life today to be with me so that we have an opportunity to talk about active learning and collaboration and communication in your classroom. But before we get started, I want to share with you my objective, because we know as teachers that when you share your objective with your students, you increase the likelihood that they're actually going to achieve it. So, my objective. When you finish this professional development module today, you will be able to identify 4 simple steps to establish a collaborative, cooperative classroom learning community. That's the goal in your classroom. Now, in 2013, I saw a Gallup poll that I like to share with you. Now, Gallup is an organization in the United States that polls people across the country for all different reasons. And in this case, they asked a variety of people, do you feel fulfilled? Do you have a good life? And they got a variety of responses, all based on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being, oh my gosh, my life is terrible. I'd rather just stay in bed. I don't want to have to get up. 2, 10, my life is fabulous. I wake up every morning with a smile and I'm happy to be alive. When they got the responses, they categorized them according to profession. And here's what I found surprising about those results. Teachers beat out investment bankers, consultants, entrepreneurs, all types of professionals. They beat out everybody except physicians in how they rated their lives overall. Well, I thought to myself, this is curious. In the newspapers, I read low salaries, crowded classrooms, underfunded schools. How is it possible that teachers feel so satisfied with their lives? Well, Gallup asked people to explain their level of happiness, and teachers reported that they have a high level of satisfaction because every day they get to do what they do best. They use their strengths to do what they do best every single day. What do they do best? Every day they interact with one of the most boisterous, challenging, diverse groups of people on the planet, the K-12 student, your students. Now, they sit in front of us, all shapes, all sizes, all different personalities, looking up at us with rapt attention, or they're texting, or they're talking to the person that's seated on either side of them. But ultimately, they're sitting there, and you look down on them, and every day we as educators ask ourselves exactly the same question. Will my lesson, will the planning I've done motivate my students to succeed? How can I motivate my students? Now, I thought that was a pretty good question. So I went to my search engine and I typed it in. How can teachers motivate students? And guess what? I got 24,400,000 responses. And I looked through some of, not all of them, I looked through some of them, a lot of them. And what I found is that most offered myriad reward systems, things like carrots that were intended to encourage active participation or reward excellent performance. And I thought, I'll look through all of these. Is there a secret one? Is there one motivator here that will really motivate all students? What might it be? And then I remembered the research that shows that rewards are no more helpful at fostering achievement than they are at fostering good values. Here's $50, honey, if you make all straight A's. Is a student going to study more? I'll give you $10 for every pound you lose between now and November. Am I going to lay off the sweets? Is there any evidence that rewards really work? No. Sorry about that. In fact, at least 24 studies show that people who expect a reward for whatever their performance might be actually do not perform as well as those who have no reward waiting for them. Think about that. Shall we just give up motivating our students? No, of course not. However, it does mean that we should consider the implications of extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation refers to doing something because it leads to a separable outcome. Intrinsic motivation refers to doing something because it is inherently enjoyable or interesting. What does it mean to us? What does that mean in terms of our students in the classroom? Well, let's just look at a little example. We design a discrete item worksheet for our students, and we hand them out. They take a look at it, and you say, you've got 5 minutes to finish, and if you do, you receive the extra king-size Hershey's chocolate bar, the first one that finishes it. The race is on. Now, here is the conundrum. I love chocolate. I love dark chocolate with almonds. I'm a chocolate lover, but not everybody does. So because of that, some students, they may perform that extrinsically motivated task, but they may perform it with resistance. I don't really want to do it. Resentment, why isn't she offering jelly beans? Or complete disinterest. I just don't care. Or worse, I can never do it. I'm not good at this. Others, say students that just love competition, or the student that wants to win the chocolate bar to give to his little sweetheart or her sweetheart in the classroom. Those students, they perform with an attitude of willingness that reflects an inner acceptance of the value or the utility of the task. Those students are different. Those extrinsically motivated students feel propelled, externally propelled into action. The chocolate, the love of competition, they self-endorse the goal. They adopt it with a sense of volition. They adopt it with a sense of volition. That's why rewards work with some students and they do not work with others. Now, through rewards, can we teachers evoke that sense of volition in all our students? No, we can't. Not only can we not design the perfect carrot, we may wish to rethink rewards altogether. Why? Research shows that students who are encouraged to think about grades or stickers or any other sort of goodie, they actually become less creative. They are less willing to explore ideas, and they are less willing to take chances. Indeed, at least 10 studies have shown that when people are offered a reward, they tend to choose the easiest possible task. Now, of greater importance to us as educators is that in the absence of rewards, children tend to choose a task that is just beyond their level of ability. The challenge. They seek the challenge. Now, shall we give up? There is hope, and that hope is called intrinsic motivation. And it works with all our students. So, when intrinsically motivated students are moved to act, they do it for the fun or for the challenge of it, rather than for external pressures or prods or rewards. Here is the beautiful truth. Learning is a natural inclination. Learning is the source and the reward. The will to learn is intrinsic. Now, the will to learn only becomes a problem under specialized circumstances, like a school, where the curriculum is set, the students confined, and the path is fixed. In schools, the problem exists not so much in learning itself, but in the fact that what the school imposes often fails to evoke, to enlist those natural energies that sustain spontaneous learning. Thus, in our own classrooms, we educators must enlist those natural energies and incorporate a sense of fun and challenge into our lessons. Now, I know it sounds like a ponderous task. However, there are simple steps. There are simple steps that we can take to soften the edges of the fixed path and provide an environment, an active learning environment that intrinsically motivates our students. So today, we're going to talk about 4 simple steps that we can take as educators to motivate our students. They are, number 1, classroom design, to facilitate collaboration and establish an environment of belonging. Number 2, practice before performance, the key to successful active learning. Number 3, exploration and discovering, providing your students with an opportunity to teach each other. And finally, scaffolding activities to provide those small victories that build skills. So, simple step number 1. Consider your classroom design, especially the student seating. Now, students moved from benches to desks in the United States in the late 1880s. By the 1940s, classrooms came to resemble productive factories. Students in straight and orderly rows, the teacher standing behind a podium, lecturing to students, assembly line learning. Over 100 years later, you'll still find those rows and those podiums in many classrooms, despite the understanding that both impede collaboration and communication. Both put distance, child on the back row, the distance between students that are in isolated rows, and objects, the desks, the podium, between communicators. Take a close look at your own classroom and consider your options. Now, my preferred seating arrangement is a modified U or a horseshoe shape, generally one horseshoe in front of the other. But play with seating to discover what works best for you, for your room, the dimensions of your room, and for your personality. Maybe you want stadium seating that has rows in between groups of desks. Maybe you want angled desks with the rows touching each other. Maybe you want to create seating pods. Maybe you get round tables. But whatever you do, get online, look at the different options for classroom design, and make a decision. How do I want my classroom to look? When students enter your room for the first time, they will feel the difference, especially if they enter and on each desk there is a name tent with each student's name featured. The name tent is a powerful, powerful tool. You may be familiar with a man named Dale Carnegie. Dale Carnegie was a leadership trainer and an author, and he said, "A person's name to that person is the sweetest, most important sound in any language. Nothing more quickly instills a sense of belonging in your students than the fact that their teacher says their name eyeball to eyeball with a smile on their face." It's a powerful tool. Imagine the difference. That first day of class, you're not fumbling with the seating chart. You're not pointing to somebody saying, "Hey, you, the red shirt," or, "No, I'm talking about the guy sitting behind you." Think of the difference. "David, do you have a question?" "Jeanette, may I help you?" "Anna, would you like to contribute?" Or even when you have to redirect a student who may be misbehaving. "Lourdes." That's all it takes. And name tints make it very easy to change your seating, to configure it, because you move the name tint and the student moves with it. So you may be asking yourself, why is it so important where students sit? Why am I in charge of seating students? Where your student sits, where each student sits, directly impacts their success in your classroom. Students do not self-select their seating very well. Most of them select to choose with a friend, or they sit in groups by race, by religion, by clique. The preppy kids sit over there, the kids that are theater students sit over there. And where do you suppose the struggling students sit? You know, we all know where they sit. They sit in the back. They sit in the back. Now, students have come to identify seating charts or seating arrangements with punishment. Why is that? Well, think of what we do as teachers. "I'm going to move the two of you. No. Stop talking or I'm going to separate you. I'm going to make a seating chart for this classroom." We've done it. It's our fault. In our classrooms today, we have to change that paradigm. When they ask, and they will, "Why do I have to sit here?" You tell them, "I design the seating in this classroom so that you will learn more, better, and faster. And do put some thought into that seating arrangement. Don't make it random. And of course, you're going to have students who need a certain seat in the front, for example, if they have hearing difficulties. But think about it. Think of day one. Now, on that day, you kind of have to be random, but if you have a mixed gender class, consider boy, girl, boy, girl, boy, girl. Take advantage of that natural, positive sexual tension. On the first day in my classroom, my students do a partnership interview. They get the opportunity to interact with their new partner, their first day partner. And because of the questions asked in the interview, that very first day, I discover which of my students feel excited and confident about learning a language and which students do not. On day two, my students enter the classroom to a new seating arrangement based on the responses to their interview questions. If they ask, and they will, "Why did you change it? Why did you change the way we were seated yesterday?" I remind them, I have designed the seating to help you learn more, better, and faster. The illustration shows you the very best configuration, enabling your stronger, more confident students to work successfully with your weaker, less confident students. Now I know that you will have at least one student who comes up to you and says, "Oh, you put me with Rose. She's so slow. Please let me work with Anna. Ana is so smart and she's good at Spanish and I'm good at Spanish and we could do so much together. Please let us sit together. That's when you pull out the active learning pyramid. Let's take a look at it. After 2 weeks, a student's retention of newly learned material varies according to how they receive that information. Note the difference between passive learning, like listening to a lecture or watching a demonstration, and active learning, in which the student takes a direct role. Indeed, in active learning, look at the first one, group discussion. 50% retention after 2 weeks. Pretty good. But then compare it with the last one, teaching others. Wow. If you provide your students with a chance to explore, explain, and discuss new learning with other students, they will retain 90% of the new learning. Wouldn't it be highly beneficial for all of our students to teach each other? Whenever possible, shouldn't we be doing that in the classroom? Now, my response to the concerned student about working with Rose is this. I understand why you would prefer to work with Ana. However, by working with Rose every day, you're going to have the opportunity to explain concepts and to practice. You will develop a profound understanding of what you learn. Yes, Rose is going to learn as well, but you're learning? Let me put it this way. Everything I know about Spanish, I learned it because a student asked me why. I had to figure it out. I had to explain it. That's what you're going to do. Bright students get it, and they become wonderful peer tutors. Together with their diverse partners, they build a collaborative, communicative learning community. In that community, each student develops a sense of trust, confidence, and camaraderie. Each class becomes a learning community, and each student belongs to that community. However, this doesn't necessarily happen overnight. Some communities evolve faster than others. Why is it that some students are so difficult to engage? Why do some students simply opt out of learning? Why is it? There's an answer. It's because they suffer from belonging uncertainty. I'm so stupid. I always do poorly in this subject. I don't belong in this class. I wish I didn't have to be here. Belonging uncertainty. Even a minor incident, such as the inability to respond quickly to the teacher, or identify a vocabulary item, or make a poor score on a test, or be unable to trill the Spanish R. Even a minor incident can become an intense moment of social stigmatization. Some students have lived with this burden of belonging uncertainty for years. It didn't start in your classroom, but they come into your classroom. How can we change that? Now, I'm sure at some point that you have been the victim of a telephone cold call. You know what I mean. You get a phone call. Would you like to buy, donate, participate? What do? Most of us just hang up. Do you realize that every day, all over the world, we teachers cold call on our students? And when that happens, what do? Many of them just hang up. Every time we cold call on a student, we offer an opportunity for belonging uncertainty. Years ago, I learned that educators should wait 1 full minute after asking a question to allow students a time to come up with a response. Today, I can only imagine the agony experienced by the unprepared student who waits and waits and waits that minute until finally the teacher says those horrible words, "Can anyone help Rosie?" I hated that question. And sometimes, we educators, we feel annoyed. I called on her because I knew she wasn't listening. I knew she couldn't answer, and she couldn't. Ha, gotcha. I'm guilty, I've done it. I know it happens. Wouldn't it be great if all of our students could respond when called upon? Every time? All of them? Always? They can. Remember the active learning pyramid. Remember teaching others. Let's avoid the role of grand inquisitor of passive learning and instead become facilitators of active learning. Rather than a minute of anxiety-filled silence, let's incorporate simple step number 2. Practice before performance. Allow your students an opportunity to practice before they perform. Let's look at 2 different learning scenarios. First, a traditional cold call, an approach in which we ask students a question based on previously learned material. Let's say we were studying past tense and food vocabulary. So the teacher turns to a student and asks, "¿Qué comiste anoche?" The student thinks, "What did I eat last night? Let's see. Okay, I ate a food. Okay, let's see. The article, the gender. Do I use an adjective with it? Okay, let's see. Who did it? I did it. What's the verb? When did it happen? What's the conjugation?" Only the best students can perform the linguistic gymnastics to quickly respond to such a question. Most students hesitate. Other students nervously avoid the teacher's eyes. Belonging uncertainty invades the room. Finally, the teacher asks the dreaded question, "Who can help Rosie?" I am so stupid. Why can't I answer that question? In scenario 2, the teacher serves as a facilitator. Perhaps projects some images of food up on the board. Underneath the question, ¿Qué comiste anoche? And maybe a model response. The teacher looks at the board, then turns to the students and says, "Yo? ¿Qué comí anoche? Comí pescado, brócoli, ensalada y de postre un flan muy rico. ¿Y tú? ¿Qué comiste anoche? Pregúntale a tu compañero." In this situation, students turn to each other, all students. They ask and they respond to the question, perhaps consulting some of their notes. In scenario 1, one student responds or stumbles. The brightest student jumps in to the rescue. And the weakest students, what do? They opt out. Victims of belonging uncertainty. I am so stupid. In scenario 2, every student, weak or strong, has the opportunity to ask and answer the question. The weak practice, the strong practice, and with every repetition, they become stronger and they gain confidence. And when asked to perform by the teacher, they are better prepared for that performance. Most importantly, students have an opportunity to share their dinner experiences with each other. And the teacher can then, as a check for understanding, call upon any student in the room. In fact, the best practice is to say, "What did your partner say? What did your partner have for dinner?" Tell me what you learned. All will have the confidence to answer because they have all practiced before performance. And what about that really horrifically difficult question? The one that nobody knows the answer to? Well, guess what? Practice before performance saves the day. Why? Because when you ask a student, what did your partner say? And they're wrong, it's not their individual mistake. Their partner thought the same thing. So guess what? They're not stupid after all. Somebody else made the same mistake, and guess what? It's absolutely normal to make mistakes and not to have the right answer every single time. It's cool. All is well. No belonging uncertainty. So what are the key benefits of practice before performance? First, your struggling students discover they can answer questions. Number two, as their confidence builds, all your students will be more likely to participate in the future. Number three, teachers have myriad opportunities to praise students rather than shame them, especially to praise the weak students. And finally, as a positive, collaborative community of learners grows, skills are built stronger and stronger, more and more every day, and every student's comfort level in that classroom grows. Patterns develop. Through frequent practice before performance, students come to know. They come to understand that in this class, we're going to ask questions and answer those questions. They become used to this practice of sharing. When students face challenges, they have the tools to meet them because they've practiced before performance. And when they meet the challenges successfully, learning becomes fun. Motivation, intrinsic. And the very best way to make that active learning fun and challenging, throw away the rules and throw away those textbook definitions. Instead, incorporate simple step number 3. Introduce vocabulary and concepts through exploration and discovery. Let's do a little bit of this ourselves. Look at the next image. I use this in workshops, this chart. What do you see there? A group of 4 beverages, some words you may not understand, but the chart, if you look at it, it makes some sense of them. For example, you've got the beverages, those words kind of match the images. And what are those check signs? 7 of them, then the plus. My workshop participants quickly come to understand what that question is asking. How often do you drink these beverages? Frequently? Sometimes? Rarely? Or never? And even though they have absolutely no background in the Basque language, they're able to ask and answer questions in Basque and communicate. How did they do it? Through exploration and discovery. And guess what? 2 weeks from doing that activity, they are going to remember 90% of that content. Why? Because they taught each other. The best way to learn actively. So that brings us to simple step number 4. Once you have established a pattern of collaborative communication, teaching others, you can use that peer tutoring environment to provide scaffolding activities so that students can build skills one step at a time. Let's explore an example of that sort of activity. In the next image, you see a chart with 4 food items, clip art items. Now, students can start by just exploring the foods, and they're answering a checklist. Do I eat this food or do I not? Check, check, check. I like it or not I like it. I eat it or I don't eat it. Now, in the classroom, you're probably going to have more than 4 items, but you get the idea. In the next image, Now students practice pronunciation, and you'll notice the articles are there. Students are jotting those down as they practice pronouncing the words. Or if they already knew these words, this could be used as a very simple, informal assessment where you give students the images, they write down the articles, share it with a partner, did I get these correctly? And then the teacher confirms the answers, right or wrong. Finished with that, they're ready for their next task. Here, students see the model question. This model question requires them to answer with a direct object pronoun because they see that in the model response. They've already reviewed the vocabulary. They know the gender and number. Now, you're giving them the opportunity to talk about these different food items. And in doing so, they're using direct object pronouns instead of the food itself. They also get to discover a lot about the eating habits of their partner. Now, finally, depending on the proficiency level of the class, of the students, they can return to that chart and we can ask another question. Why? Why do you like to eat fish and you don't like to eat meat? And they can respond. They can respond simply. Why? Me gusta. No me gusta. Or they can give specifics if their proficiency is at high enough level. I am a vegetarian. I'm lactose intolerant. I can't eat meat, whatever. The point is, you have one chart, 4 activities, each building one upon the next. To illustrate the concept a bit more, I'm going to share with you some food unit scaffolding activities. And these will engage your students, and they are also going to provide real life communication practice. So, as I do want to mention that as the tasks grow more challenging, it's highly beneficial to your students to provide a rubric to assure that their performance meets expectations or hopefully exceeds expectations. So let's start. Activity number 1. Students make a chart. Best meal ever. Provide a main course, a side dish, a dessert, and a beverage. Activity number 2. They sit with a partner. They compare their charts. I include my partner's best meal ever items on my chart, and he does the same, or she does the same. Task number 3. We hook up with 2 other people. We're now in a group of 4. We add, compare. Now all of our charts should look the same. And when we finish, we brainstorm. Let's add 2 new food items to each of the categories. Now, task number 4. Let's categorize our items according to things like healthy or unhealthy, spicy or not spicy, highly caloric or low caloric. We can make icons to differentiate these different foods. Task number 5. Let's create a restaurant menu. We've got all of our food items. Let's make a menu. Let's write a sentence to describe each of these foods, and let's put a price on each item. Task number 6. Our restaurant needs a name. Let's invent a name. Carbs for Us, or Vegans United, or Misadventures in Food. Be creative, invent something. And once you've got your restaurant name, are there any foods on that list that don't really meet expectations? You can't really have roast beef on Vegans United, so look over your work. Task number 7, a restaurant hop. You take everybody's menu, you post them along the wall, and you invite your students to get up and check them out and select 3 of them for 3 unique eating experiences. An intimate first date, a family gathering, and maybe a fabulous party. Justify why you chose each restaurant. Task number 8, be a food critic. Get together with your partner and create a pro and con food review about one of your selected restaurants. Task number 9, take a totally new perspective. What would you not want to eat? What is like the worst meal ever? What would be the most horrible restaurant? What's the worst menu you can imagine? You can go through each of those 8 steps, do them again, just from a different perspective. And finally, number 10, at any point, break up the seat time. Get your kids on their feet. Get your students on their feet. They can collect classroom data. They can do an inner outer circle. They can do random or snake line interviews. Have them collect data. What do we like to eat in this classroom? What are our favorite foods? You can do it on paper, or you can do it digitally with applications like Poll Everywhere, or even using a simple Excel spreadsheet. Scaffolding activities provides the challenge. Successfully completing each step makes that challenge fun. The learning, the motivation becomes intrinsic. Now, in a traditional world, a world language classroom, 30 students, the teacher may call on one student to do an individual task. For example, respond to a homework question, or write a sentence up on the board, or respond to a cold call question. One student, one task. Now, what are the other 29 students doing while that one student is performing? Well, in an ideal world, the other students are attentive, listening, thinking to themselves, how would I respond to that question? They're assessing the performance of their peer. But in reality, what are those other 29 students doing? A lot of them will select to opt out. They will disengage. And disengaged students will find a way to self-engage, often in terms of misbehavior. The resulting disturbance negatively affects everybody in the classroom. The teacher who designs student-centered, active learning activities has few behavioral problems. An established pattern of practice before performance allows opportunities for the teacher to go throughout the classroom, to visit partnerships, to visit small groups, to assess, to reward, to encourage, to support different students, as well as, and this is important, uninterrupted time for the teacher to prepare for the transition to the next activity. Now, potential classroom chaos can be easily avoided when students are accustomed to practice before performance and teaching others. For example, class, we're going to watch a video about transportation in Mexico. Get out your pencils and paper. We're going to take some notes here and, the projector doesn't work. It's not marrying with the laptop. What do? The teacher thinks, oh my gosh, okay, what valuable task can I give my students to do in a short period of time that will give me some time to fix this problem? The teacher thinks, okay, class, turn to your partner. Select 3 destinations that you would like to visit and explain to your partner how you would get there. For example, I would like to go to Oaxaca, Mexico, so I get in my car, drive to the airport, I walk to the departure gate, I board the plane, I fly to Mexico, I arrive, I take a cab, I'm at the hotel and I'm there. Or in Austin, I want to go to the Bob Bullock Museum, so I hop on my bicycle, I bicycle to the museum, I park my bicycle, I lock it, I walk into the museum and I'm there. Think about it. 3 destinations, 5 minutes, start. Whew. Once trained to be collaborative learners, it takes very little effort to turn students to a new related task. And you've got 5 minutes, uninterrupted, to fix that projector. Today, we've talked about 4 simple steps that we can incorporate into our classrooms to facilitate collaboration and communication. Classroom design, practice before performance, exploration and discovery, and scaffolding activities. All of these support a belonging environment in which a community of learners works together to build their new language skills. Together, they discover that learning a new language can be challenging, but fun. Every day in our classrooms, we can provide our students an opportunity to do something that they do well, that they enjoy doing. They can be successful, and we can facilitate that success. Remember that Gallup poll? Don't we teachers find great satisfaction in using our strengths to do what we do best every single day? Wouldn't our students also feel the same? Now, I don't suggest that we throw out all those carrots. I mean, chocolate, stamps, grade points, all of that stuff. It's fun, it's good. But keep in mind the implications of intrinsic motivation. It works every time. As educators, we hold the future of so many in our hands. It's both an honor and an obligation. And as such, I very much appreciate the opportunity that I've had here to share with you, my peers. Thank you so much.